Hey everyone, I'm gonna post a couple of videos this week to help with some of the assignments and stuff. So after reading the first essays, I thought it might be helpful to go over some information about formatting your papers according to MLA. It seems like there's quite a bit of confusion about that, particularly about citing. So one thing I have done is given a quiz this week, which is going to require you to look up information about how to cite stuff. So let me share my screen with you here and I'll show you what's going on. So here is the module for this week. You have a quiz on using the works cited page, in-text citations, and using quotes correctly. I'm not going to go over everything with you. Some of it I will, but you can take as much time you want. It's not a timed quiz. And it's really to help you so that you don't lose points on your papers for this sort of thing. All of the information that you need for the quiz is here in the MLA information. You know, you'll have to look some of it up, and that's kind of the tricky thing about MLA citation. It's really not something you can memorize. A lot of times, even now when I'm writing something, I have to look up, oh, how should that be cited? I'm talking about a television show. How should I cite that? One thing that I think was confusing to people is if you look something up, even if you don't use quotes, even if you don't use the exact words of somebody else, you still need to cite where you got that information. So whether you're summarizing or directly quoting, you still need to cite that information. And one thing that I'll show you, I do have a sample MLA paper here, so I'm going to show you that. So your MLA paper should look just like this, of course, without the boxes. These are all annotations, right? I did post an essay this week from one of your classmates that is formatted correctly, so that might be helpful. But one thing that I think is important to know, some students do list citations on their works cited page, but that's all. If you have something on your works cited page, like right here, this paper has, 3 different entries on the works cited page. You have to have a matching citation somewhere in the body of the paper showing me or your audience where you got that information. So it doesn't really matter that you just listed it, you have to make those match. And the same is true if you have information in the body of your paper, you need the matching citation on your works cited page. When I'm using the phrase in-text citation, I'm referring to the parentheses that goes at the end of a sentence after you've given some information. Information that's general knowledge doesn't have to be cited. If you say, John F. Kennedy was president of the United States and he was assassinated, everybody knows that, you don't need to cite it. But if you start going into detail and say, well, John F. Kennedy was assassinated on a warm November afternoon in 1963 near the Dallas Library, where you start giving some really specific information where it's clear you looked it up, then you need to cite that. What else? Oh, one other thing that I want to point out, and this is all in the resources section as well. A lot of people, and probably for your next essay, you may use some data, some numbers. You might say like, we're doing criminal justice. So you might say, more than 50% of people who are incarcerated, we're living at the below poverty level. So when you're looking up, or when you're going to give data or numbers, don't quote that. You want to cite it. So you want the end, you want a parenthesis saying where you got it. But quotes are really saved for memorable wording that needs analysis or discussion. But all of that information is in here. The other thing we're going to talk about is the midterm. So the midterm is not timed, so you can take as much time as you want. Just don't click begin until you're ready to take it. And the midterm is on fallacies, logical fallacies. And I'm going to click on it and just briefly go over it. It's a little tricky, I'll admit. Like, fallacies can be kind of hard to recognize. That's one of the reasons it's not timed, but you know, you can use your book during the exam. There's a PowerPoint that I made to go along with it. And so what the midterm is 16 statements, and you have to decide what fallacy it is. And I give you an example on what I want your response to look like. It's not a trick. So for each question, you're going to name the most appropriate fallacy, slippery slope, ad hominem, whatever it is. And then you'll explain in your own words why the fallacy is the appropriate choice. Note that I don't use every single fallacy in the book or PowerPoint, and some are used more than twice. So here's an example question. Don't vote for Senator X, he's an idiot. So your response would be something like this. The fallacy is ad hominem. The explanation is this fallacy is ad hominem because the person is being asked not to cast a vote for a person based on unproven personality flaw rather than political policy. Saying someone is an idiot is a personal character attack and is not a valid nor logical reason not to vote for someone. The speaker should provide evidence that is relevant to the senator's voting record or history that can be proven. So again, some of the fallacies may be used more than once, and some may be not used at all. So this is where students tend to lose points. So I want to talk about that. You get 1 point for naming the fallacy, and then you get 4 points for the explanation. And I think students get kind of lost in the explanation area, which is worth 4 times more than naming the correct fallacy, right? So this is what I will often see students do. And I'm going to use the same example from up above. So they have the Senator X is an idiot, and this would be something where I would see students do. So the fallacy is ad hominem. Ooh, got that right, yay. Explanation. The fallacy is ad hominem because the person is basically calling the other person an idiot. You've just restated what the argument was. You didn't explain in your own words why that is bad reasoning, why that is faulty reasoning. So I would probably I would give you 1 point for naming it correctly, but probably only 1 point out of the 4 for your explanation. So instead of getting 5 points on this question, you would get 2. So hopefully that is helpful. You just don't want to restate it. You want to explain why that reasoning is poor reasoning. And that I'm also going to go over, I'm going to do another video on the essay, but I wanted to separate out the two. So let me know if you have any questions.